What's up, Skull family? It's your guy Victor here with Report Vikings, and today's episode is a big one. I'm talking about 5 players on our Minnesota Vikings roster who are officially entering now or never territory, whether it's fighting to stay on this team or even fighting for their NFL careers. This year is going to be huge for these guys. Before we jump into the breakdown, do me a solid, subscribe to the channel and hit that like button so we can spread this video to more die-hard fans like you. Let's run it up to 70 likes, just to show that we're riding hard with the purple and gold no matter what. Alright, let's get into it. 5 Vikings who absolutely have to show up in 2025. Let's start with a guy you might not expect, Will Reichard, our kicker. Now listen, when the Vikings drafted this dude out of Alabama in the 6th round, I thought, finally, the kicking curse might be over. The guy was automatic in college. 52-yard bombs, no problem. He even nailed one against J.J. McCarthy in Michigan. Yeah, that J.J. McCarthy. And to be fair, first half of 2024, he was lights out, 14 for 14 on field goals, perfect on extra points. But then, the quad injury hit, he missed some time, and when he came back, man, he just didn't look like himself. From weeks 14 to 18, he missed 6 kicks. That power, that confidence, it just wasn't there. Look, I still believe in him, I really do, but if Reichard struggles again this season, don't be surprised if the Vikings start looking elsewhere. Still, if you're feeling bold, might be time to grab that number 16 jersey early, could be the start of a bounce-back story. Alright, let's move to Jalen Naylor, who's now rocking that number 1 jersey and added 10 pounds of muscle this offseason. Dude looks ready to go to war. But here's the thing. I think this is make or break for Naylor in Minnesota. Why? Because of the competition around him. You've got Ty Felton, flashy rookie, 3rd-round pick, clearly a coaching staff favorite. Rondale Moore, proven slot option with big play potential Tim Jones. Special teams ace, the staff really values. And let's not ignore the elephant in the room. The Vikings only had 4 picks in this year's draft, yet they spent one of their top picks on another wide receiver. That's telling. If Naylor doesn't step up, especially during Jordan Addison's suspension, I don't see how he sticks around next year. You really gonna pay WR3 money to a former 6th rounder when you've got Felton on a rookie deal? But hey, he's flashed before. If he can get you 6,700 yards and a handful of touchdowns, maybe he forces Queasy's hand. We'll see. What do you guys think? Drop a 1 in the comments for Naylor, or a 13 if you're riding with Ty Felton as WR3. Man, it pains me to say it, but Jeff Okudah might be on his last leg in the NFL. He was the 3rd overall pick once, remember that? But Detroit didn't work out, Atlanta didn't work out. Now he's here in Brian Flores' system, and if he can't show something in a DB-friendly scheme like this, I just don't know what's left for him. He's behind guys like Blackman and Murphy, but with injuries always a concern, Okudah should get a shot. And honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if he beats out one of the younger guys and ends up CB3 to start the season. But let's be real, if he doesn't make an impact here, that bust label sticks forever. This is it for him. Look, I love Ivan Pace, one of my favorite players on the team. Just got engaged, by the way. Congrats, Ivan, but the Vikings drafting Kobe King in the 6th round this year? That raised my eyebrows. Kobe's basically a Pace clone. Same size, same aggressiveness, maybe slightly better in coverage. Pace had a solid season, 89.1 pass rush grade, top 15 in run defense according to PFF, but his coverage grade, yikes, 29.8. That's not going to cut it long-term in today's NFL. If Kobe King develops quickly and Pace can't clean up the coverage issues, we might be watching the Vikings quietly planning his replacement. That said, if Ivan balls out again this year, Minnesota will have to find a way to keep him. I'm rooting hard for him. And finally, we've got our rookie edge rusher, Dallas Turner. Let me be clear, I'm not saying this is a do-or-die year for him, but when you trade 4 picks to go up and get a guy, you need to see some ROI fast. Turner's been working his tail off all off-season. Everything coming out of camp is glowing, but now it's time to produce on Sundays. If he shows flashes like Nolan Smith did in his 2nd year with the Eagles, man, we're going to be talking about Turner as the next star in this defense. So yeah, it's not panic time, but expectations are high. Type 15 in the comments if you're hyped for his breakout season. All right, Vikings fans, I've said my piece. Now I want to hear from you. Which one of these 5 guys do you think will shine this year? Who's most likely to get cut or traded by 2026? And are we sleeping on any other now or never names? Let me know in the comments. I read everything you post. As always, if you enjoyed the breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe to Report Vikings, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update. S-Call Nation. We're building something special here. Let's ride together. Here's a clip from ESPN's Get Up, where insiders debate whether J.J. McCarthy can lift the Vikings. Go Vikes!
For football, the NFC back on Get Up, and now that the calendar has turned to July, let's go through some summer storylines with our Jeremy Fowler. Jeremy, what do you got on J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota?
Dan, I'm starting in the NFC North. J.J. McCarthy, what does he do this training camp? Because the Vikings passed on Aaron Rodgers despite interest from Rodgers because they believe they have a roster that can win a Super Bowl over the next 3 years. And to do so, they have a quarterback now on a rookie-scale contract to build around. So McCarthy needs to show some glimmers of hope. He doesn't have to be a hero yet. He was getting better late in OTAs and minicamp. They want to see that momentum shine early in camp. Then you got Trey Hendrickson. So this is a sticky situation with Hendrickson and the Bengals. They have been talking. That is a good sign. There is some hope, at least some level of hope, they can try to reach a deal by training camp. If not, I am told that Hendrickson has been dug in. Look, he's trying to follow his own words that he would not be there for training camp to start if there is no new deal in place. This is a player who, despite being 30 years old, wants a contract commensurate with his skill set, but also he wants a longer-term deal. He wants the security of multiple years. We'll see if the Bengals can oblige there. And then lastly, I'm going to go to the Cleveland Browns. This is fascinating. One of the biggest storylines of the league is what are the Browns going to do at quarterback? They got Joe Flacco. I expect him to be well-positioned in that hierarchy, that pecking order that they set up early in camp. But then you have the 2 rookies. I'm told Shedeur Sanders acquitted himself well in OTAs and minicamp. He was throwing with aggressiveness. He was testing the defense. But he was also going against, mostly third-team defenses, not a lot of pass rush, 7-man defense. He's got a long ways to go. So really, any conversation with the Browns' quarterback future should involve 2026, where they have 2 first-round picks and a loaded quarterback draft. So they could be looking to the future here. But in the meantime, they got to figure out something.
In the meantime, they have an absolutely fascinating jumble at quarterback. EJ, when you look at this situation in Cleveland with the quarterbacks, what goes through your head?
Well, from a player's perspective, and usually in a quarterback room, you have roles, right? You have your older veteran like a Joe Flacco. You have your starter. We don't know who that's going to be. I don't think Coach Stefanski knows who that's going to be. And then you'll have your young guys. Now, obviously, you have 2 young guys in Shedeur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel. So I'm assuming one of them is maybe trade capital at some point. And then you still have Deshaun Watson, who's returning at some point as well. I don't know if it's this season or the following season, rehabbing, but I've heard he's a coach in the room right now. To me, this just looks like another issue for the Browns. And if you're trying to compete in this division where you have Joe Burrow, you have Lamar Jackson, obviously Aaron Rodgers with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you need to know who your quarterback is at this point. You can't go into training camp saying, all right, well, we're just going to roll the ball out there and figure out who the best guy is based off of preseason. You need to have a pecking order. This team needs to know who the leader is. And at this point in the offseason, I'm just not really liking where the Browns are because of the quarterback conundrum. Again, maybe they try to use the young guys as draft capital, but I don't know. And look, 2026 draft, Jeremy's right. A bunch of potential first-round picks, maybe even 4 or 5 guys who could be first-rounders. I just don't understand why you draft 2 quarterbacks in this draft.
Yeah, for me, it's about competition. And look, I agree. Next year's draft is loaded with quarterbacks. I think you start Joe Flacco, great bridge quarterback. We know how difficult this Browns schedule is to start, but I think their future could be Shedeur Sanders. Dylan Gabriel was an unbelievable college player, 64 starts, over 18,000 yards, but the list of sub-6-foot quarterbacks that have won the Super Bowl is very short. We could talk to Drew Brees, very few exceptions to that. So to me, Shedeur Sanders should be given a chance at some point to try to be the future, and if he is, great. If not, as you guys alluded to, they got 2 first-rounders. If Jacksonville stumbles this year, it could be a very high first-round pick next year.
Yeah, in Jacksonville, it often is. EJ, if you had your choice, how would you set it up if you're the Browns? Who should be their starter at this point?
Yeah, so I would start the season with a Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, one of the 2, because they're veterans. And I would then keep Shedeur Sanders try to trade Dylan Gabriel, especially if he plays well in the preseason, to build up some of that draft capital, because there's going to be other teams that need a backup. Guys get hurt all the time. But I do believe Shedeur Sanders can be the future there. It's just a matter of why bring all these guys in? I mean, as far as bringing in the different roles, that's my question. And, you have veterans, you have young guys, and then you still have Deshaun, who you owe a bunch of money to as well. So you're not sure what they're going to do with him. But ultimately, I would try to move forward with Shedeur and try to develop him and let him be your future.
Yeah, Dan, to that point, there are 5 quarterbacks in the Browns quarterback room, which is the 4 that are healthy with the 2 rookies. And then you have Deshaun Watson, who's not healthy, but he's been, from what I'm told, really a coach in the room. They're breaking down Deshaun Watson's old tape with the Browns to teach these rookies what to do. And there's a possibility that Watson's healthy later in the year and could play. But they've all but admitted publicly that this has been a mistake. So that is an extra layer here we got to account for.
Yeah, the game tape of Deshaun Watson with the Browns, at least it's not going to take a whole lot of time to watch all of that. Let's move on and talk. Back on Get Up, time for some mic drops. Mike Tannenbaum, what do you got on the Lions?
They're going to go to the Super Bowl this year if Aiden Hutchinson can stay healthy. We know about all the points they can score at Graz. But if this guy right here plays in 17 games, his first 2 years had 20 sacks, this is a team that could pass the score, but they got to be able to close out games, something they couldn't do last year when he was injured.
EJ, what do you think of Detroit's chances this year?
Well, look, Detroit definitely has a chance, but I would ask the question to Mike T, can they beat Philadelphia? Can they beat some of these other teams in the NFC? Can they beat the Commanders? Can they beat the Green Bay Packers? And yeah, look, if Aiden Hutchinson is able to come back and play at the level he was at last year before the injury, they have a good chance, but that'll be my biggest question. Can they beat those other 3 teams?
It does feel like those injuries on defense caught up with them at the end of the year last year. How about the Bengals? What do you got on them?
Roz, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to the AFC Championship game because right here, number 91 is going to be taken care of at some point financially. Look, we know they could score. That's the easy part of the equation. But Trey Hendrickson and at some point Shamir Stewart, their first-round pick, will make a meaningful improvement to their pass rush, something they struggled with last year. New defensive coordinator Al Golden, I think, will do a good job. If they can close out games, this is as high-scoring of an offense as there is in the league.
Jeremy, obviously a lot of the story's been about those 2 guys not being signed. They did sign the receivers. What do you think about the Bengals?
The Bengals are trying to get a deal done with Trey Hendrickson. If they can get him there before training camp, then they really have something. Then Shamar Stewart will probably backfill, get his contract done at that point. Then they have 2 bookend edge rushers to get after. The defense should be improved with new coordinator Al Golden.
EJ, Tannenbaum's got the Bengals in the AFC Championship game. You feeling it?
Yeah, I hear you, Mike T, but I think Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson want to have a word before you get to that point. But I like the chances for Joe Burrow. The big key, though, they have to sign Trey Hendrickson. They also got to get Shamar Stewart on board. If they don't have the pass rush, I don't think they have a chance to win their division, and it might be hard for them to get into playoffs as well.
Bengals, Bills, Ravens. Did Mahomes retire? Did I miss that? I don't know. They're in the AFC Championship game every single year, right?
Exactly.
One more, Mike T. One more mic drop. You have a bold prediction about Coach of the Year contenders.
Pete Carroll. Now, here's a team we don't talk a lot about. This team only won 4 games last year. They struggled on both sides of the ball. But the way they're going to play the game with Ashton Genty running the ball a lot, Geno Smith, I think, is going to be solid. And they have a star in Brock Bowers. I think they're going to be productive on offense. And more importantly, they're going to play keep away. They're going to keep a defense that has a lot of question marks off the field. I think this team has a very low ceiling, but it's going to be well coached and vastly improved.
Jeremy?
Nobody drops a mic like my guy Mike T. I love it. Now, I will say the smartest thing Pete Carroll did was he went and got Geno Smith. That brings them instant credibility in that locker room at the quarterback position. They probably had the worst QB outlook in the entire league last year. I am concerned about the defensive talent outside of Max Crosby. Christian Wilkins, their starting tackle, has been out, could miss some time. They just have not backfilled with a lot of talent on that side of the ball. If they can get it done, they got a chance.
New coach, new quarterback. EJ, what do you think about the Raiders this year?
Yeah, I like the Raiders' chances, and I do want to disagree with Mike, but I can't. I really think that Pete Carroll, kind of putting his glasses and his books to the side, no longer a professor, now back as a head coach in the NFL, I think it's fantastic. And look, he's going to bring a lot of energy to this Las Vegas Raiders team that really needs it, guys. They haven't played well in the past couple of seasons since they've left Oakland, gotten to Vegas. You bring in Geno Smith, you run the ball at Ashton Genty. I like their chances, and also I think they can make the playoffs too.
Never in doubt the energy level when we're talking about Pete Carroll. You know what could use some energy is the contract talks between T.J. Watt and the